Okay, let's unpack this. I have to be honest with you right out of the gate. When I first picked up the source material for today's deep dive, I thought I knew what we were getting into.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the titles of the chapters were covering humility and internal silence. They sounded very, well, peaceful.
Serene, even.
Yeah, exactly. I was picturing a nice, calm discussion. You know, maybe some mindfulness techniques, a little spa day for the soul.
And I assume that feeling of relaxation didn't last very long.
About 3 paragraphs, I realized pretty quickly that this is not a spa day. This is more like spiritual boot camp.
That's a good way to put it.
Or maybe open heart surgery without the anesthesia.
Yeah.
It is. It's aggressive.
It is. And that aggression is actually the point. We're looking at a text that isn't at all interested in making you feel good about yourself. It's a manual for what I like to call internal architecture.
Internal architecture, I like that.
It's looking at the structural integrity of the human soul. And it argues that most of us,
Oh, okay.
we're building on a foundation that is completely rotten.
Rotten is a strong word, but after reading this, I really can't disagree. The text is just this ruthless dissection of the human ego, what it calls the old self. And the central paradox we are going to unpack today is just, it's mind-bending. The text essentially posits that the moment you think you are humble, you have lost humility.
Exactly. It's the observer effect of the soul.
The observer effect.
As soon as the ego looks at itself and says, wow, good job being humble today, the humility evaporates. It's gone. It's instantly replaced by pride. It's a trap, a perfect self-referential trap.
It's a game where the only way to win is not to know you're playing. So here's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to break down this text's view on false humility, identifying all the costumes we wear to look good or even to look spiritually bad. Then we're going to look at the old self and why our own defensiveness is actually our biggest enemy. And finally, we're going to follow the roadmap from that noisy defensive state to this place of internal silence.
And a fair warning to everyone listening.
Yeah.
This might sting a little. It certainly stung me preparing for this.
How so?
Well, it attacks behaviors that we are taught to value in polite society, things we think of as being nice or modest.
Oh, absolutely. So let's jump right into the deep end. The first major section, the masquerade.
The masquerade. Let's do it.
So the text starts by drawing this hard, bright line between false and true humility. And I think for a lot of us, myself included, the working definition of humility is usually thinking less of yourself. You know, the aw shucks routine.
Right. Oh, I'm not that great, or I'm the worst, or I don't deserve this praise. That whole performance.
Exactly. But the source material comes in hot and says that behavior, specifically the performance of meekness, is actually a scam.
It is a scam.
Yeah.
A very convincing one, but a scam nonetheless. The text identifies this whole pattern of behavior as a costume. It talks about people who flee from praise, who run away from compliments, or who constantly verbalize how corrupt or bad they are.
Right. Oh, I'm just a terrible sinner.
Yes. And on the surface, that looks like humility. You're rejecting status. You're lowering yourself. It seems noble. But the text asks a critical question. Why are you doing it? What's the real motive?
And this is where it gets cynical, or maybe just brutally realistic. The text suggests there is a hidden motive.
The motive is manipulation, pure and simple. The text asserts that these people disparage themselves so that others will contradict them.
Okay, let's pause on that because that is a very specific and very common social dynamic. It's the fishing for compliments strategy, weaponized.
It's precisely that. Think about it in a modern context. You're at work. You hand in a report that you secretly know is excellent. You worked hard on it.
You know it's good.
You know it's good. But you hand it to your boss and you say, oh, look, I'm sorry, I know this is a bit rough. I probably missed a few things. I just threw it together.
Right. And you're not saying that because you believe it. You're saying it because the social script demands a certain response.
So what's the response?
The response is, no. What are you talking about? This is brilliant. You're being too hard on yourself. This is amazing work.
Exactly. It is a transaction. You are buying a compliment with the currency of self-deprecation.
Wow. Buying a compliment.
That's all it is. And the text is brutal about this. It calls it secret and hidden pride.
Hidden because it looks like the opposite. It's camouflaged.
Perfectly camouflaged.
Yeah.
But think about the mechanism. You are attempting to control how others perceive you. You are manipulating the entire conversation to extract validation, That is an act of the ego. It's actually extremely self-centered. You made the whole exchange about you and your need for praise.
It's funny because when you see it laid out like that, it's so obvious, it's almost embarrassing. But in the moment, it feels so righteous. I feel like, look at me being so modest.
But you aren't being modest. You are being loud about your own badness. The text forces us to see that whether you are shouting about how great you are or whispering about how terrible you are, the subject of the sentence is still I. You are still the center of the universe. Your greatness is the topic, or your badness is the topic. But you're always the topic.
The text goes even further, though. It doesn't just talk about the strategy. It lists these specific external behaviors that it rejects as proof of humility.
Yeah.
And the list is, well, it's uncomfortably familiar.
It's like it's been reading our mail.
Totally. It lists things like standing in the lowest place at a gathering.
Right. The performative act of taking the bad seat.
Or remaining silent when you have something to say, but wanting everyone to notice how silent and thoughtful you are.
The loud silence, yes.
Wearing poor clothes, speaking in a submissive tone.
Oof. The submissive tone is a killer detail. We all know that voice.
The spiritual voice. Soft, a little whispery, almost breathy.
I'm just a humble servant.
Yeah.
Here to do what is needed.
Yes, that's it. Or, and this one is incredible, bowing or closing your eyes excessively. Or sighing. The text mentions sighing.
The holy sigh. Oh, the burden of this world is so heavy upon me. It's theater.
It's pure theater. It's a performance of piety. And the source flat out says that believing you are humble because you do these things is ridiculous. That's the word it uses. Ridiculous.
Not misguided. Not a little off.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It's showing contempt for the performance.
So if I'm hearing this right, the text is arguing that real humility has absolutely nothing to do with your posture, your volume, your wardrobe, or your sigh frequency.
Nothing whatsoever. Zero. You can be wearing a king's robe and be truly humble, and you can be wearing rags and be completely eaten up with pride. Humility, according to this guide, is strictly an internal reality. It is not a costume you can put on to impress an audience.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Isn't there value in manners? If I'm bragging all the time, that's just objectively annoying and bad for society. Isn't acting humble at least better than being an arrogant jerk?
That's a great question. Socially? Sure. It's more pleasant to be around someone who isn't a constant braggart. No one's arguing against basic politeness. But this text isn't about social etiquette. It's not Emily Post's guide to spiritual gatherings. It's about the state of your soul.
And it's arguing that the two are different things.
Radically different. It's arguing that acting humble acts as a barrier to becoming humble.
How so?
Because you fool yourself. You check the box. You think, well, I didn't brag today, so I'm good. I'm a humble person. Meanwhile, your internal world, your mind, is just as obsessed with status and reputation as the arrogant guy. You're just playing a more subtle, more socially acceptable game.
So it's the difference between painting a wall that looks clean and actually fixing the dry rot behind the plaster.
That's a perfect analogy. The paint job is the costume. The dry rot is the pride. The source is concerned that the costume of humility actually feeds the pride. It creates a feedback loop.
A feedback loop.
Think about it. You act humble. People praise you for being humble. Oh, you're the most humble person I know. What does your ego do with that? It swells up. It says, yes, I am. I am the best at being humble.
You win the Humility Olympics.
You win the gold medal. And now you are 10 times further away from the goal than when you started.
That is a terrifying thought. That you can be proud of your humility. It's meta-pride.
It is meta-pride. It's the final boss of ego. And that is why the text is so aggressive in stripping away these behaviors.
Yeah.
It wants to leave us with nowhere to hide. No costumes, no performances, just the raw internal state.
All right, so we've stripped away the costume, the sighing, the bowing, the I'm so unworthy speech. That's all fake. So what is the real thing? This brings us to section 2, which tries to outline the anatomy of true humility.
And here is where we go right back to that central paradox. The text says it very clearly. True humility never thinks, I want to be humble.
Meaning, it's not a goal you can consciously strive for. If I put be humble on my to-do list, I've already failed.
You've already failed. It means it is an unconscious state. It is a state of being, not a conscious effort. The moment you think, I am being humble right now, you have stepped out of the state. You are now observing yourself, judging your performance, and essentially giving yourself a gold star for modesty. The observer, the ego, is back in charge.
It's like being in the zone in sports.
Yeah.
If you're a basketball player on a hot streak and you suddenly think, wow, I'm shooting really well, you almost always miss the next shot.
Yes, You break the flow.
You became self-conscious.
That's a very, very good analogy. True humility is a flow state. The text says the truly humble person ignores the self. They aren't thinking about their achievements, but, and this is a really key distinction, they also aren't thinking about their failures in a neurotic, self-obsessed way.
So they're not beating themselves up either.
No, they just are. They're occupied with something else entirely. Their focus is external, on God, or on the task at hand, not internal, on their own performance scorecard.
Let's drill down into that reaction to failure part, because this really struck me as profound. The text says when a humble person makes a mistake, they don't panic. They don't spiral into self-loathing. They face their errors with a quiet shame. Can we unpack that phrase? Because shame usually sounds like a very negative, destructive thing to me.
It is a very nuanced phrase in this context. Quiet shame. Usually when our ego is involved, our shame is loud, it's noisy, it's defensive.
What does that sound like?
It screams, I can't believe I did that. I'm so stupid. What will people think of me now? My reputation is ruined.
Right, that's the panic. I'm a fraud, and now everyone knows it.
That reaction is wounded pride. It hurts because your image of yourself as a perfect, competent, flawless person has been shattered.
So the pain isn't from the mistake itself.
The pain is from the death of your fantasy self.
Mm-hmm.
You thought you were Superman, and you just tripped over your own cape in front of everyone. The pain is the cognitive dissonance between who you thought you were and the reality of your mistake.
So the drama, the defensiveness, the panic, that's all just proof of pride.
Yes. But quiet shame is different. It's a completely different emotional texture. It is acceptance. It is looking at the mistake and saying, yes, I did that. That is within my capacity as a flawed human being. Of course I could do that.
It's not a surprise.
It's not a surprise. It doesn't rock your foundation because your foundation wasn't built on the idea that you were perfect in the first place. It's a calm, quiet acknowledgement of reality. You made a mess. You feel a simple regret. You clean it up and you move on. No drama.
That is actually really liberating. It sounds like the text is saying, relax, you're not a god. Stop acting so surprised when you act like a human.
That's exactly it. If you truly understood your own nature, your own fragility, you wouldn't be shocked when you fail. You would just correct it and move on. The shock, the drama, the howka, that all comes from the ego. The ego hates reality because reality includes our limitations. True humility embraces reality.
Okay. Now, this leads into an even more challenging area. The attitude towards suffering and persecution. And this is where I think a lot of listeners might hit the brakes hard. The text says the humble person joyfully accepts persecution.
It does, unambiguously.
Joyfully. I mean, come on. That sounds masochistic. It sounds like a psychological disorder. Please hurt me. I love it. How do we square that with a healthy mindset?
It's a very difficult concept for the modern ear, no question. But we have to look at the why. The text doesn't say enjoy the pain. It says joyfully accept the situation. The reason it gives is that they wish to follow the footsteps of their despised Lord. This is a spiritual text, so it's referencing the life of Jesus.
Okay, so it's a kind of imitation or solidarity.
It's a complete realignment of values. If your ultimate hero, your role model, is the suffering servant, then suffering and being despised are no longer signs of failure. They become signs that you're on the right path.
Like a badge of honor.
Exactly. It's like a soldier being proud of a battle scar, because it connects them to the great battle their general fought. The scar isn't pleasant, but what it represents is glorious to them.
Okay, I can see that logic. It's about reframing the meaning of the event. But joyfully, that's still a big leap.
The joy comes from the freedom. The text argues that this person is satisfied solely with what God provides. Their sense of well-being is not dependent on public opinion. If you are truly 100% satisfied with that, then human opinion loses all its currency. It becomes worthless.
It's like a monopoly money.
Perfect analogy. It's like going to a foreign country where your money doesn't work. Someone insults you or someone praises you. It's all monopoly money. It doesn't buy anything in the economy you're actually living in.
That is a great image. If I'm living in the kingdom economy, then your insults, your criticisms, your bad reviews, they're just colored paper. They don't affect my actual bank account.
Exactly. And can you imagine the freedom of that? The sheer unshakable peace. If your boss yells at you, or if someone leaves a mean comment on your post, you can look at it and say, this has no value in my economy.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't hear it. It just means it doesn't bankrupt you emotionally. That is where the joy comes from that invincibility.
So where does the state come from? You can't just snap your fingers and decide insults don't hurt anymore. The text mentions a dual knowledge as the foundation.
Yes,
Yes.
This is the foundation. It's not about willpower. You cannot just try to be humble. You have to know two things in your bones. First, the immensity, the greatness, the otherness of God. And second, the extreme depth of human corruption or depravity.
And corruption here, that's another one of those heavy theological words. It sounds like self-hatred again. I am a worm and no man.
It can sound that way, but for our purposes, think of it more as fragility or incompleteness or inherent limitation. It's the deep, non-judgmental realization that the natural human state, on its own, without connection to the divine, is flawed. It's prone to error. It's prone to selfishness. It's prone to decay. It's just breakable.
Like a piece of pottery that has a crack in it from the moment it was made?
A beautiful way to put it. The text says this knowledge goes beyond words. It's not an intellectual thesis you write. It's not high knowledge. It's an internal knowing.
Like knowing fire is hot. You don't need to read a scientific paper on combustion. You just know it deep down.
Exactly that. You've felt the heat. And when you juxtapose those two deep knowings, the infinite, stable greatness of the divine on one hand and the fragile, messy, cracked reality of the human on the other, humility is the only logical result. It's not an act. It's not a virtue you cultivate. It's just an accurate reading of the situation. You are small. God is big. That's just physics.
So humility is basically a reality check.
It's the ultimate reality check. It's waking up from the grand dream where you are the giant, suffering hero at the center of the universe, and realizing you are actually a very small, very dependent, but much loved part of a much, much larger picture.
And strangely, that smallness isn't depressing. The way you describe it, it sounds relieving.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to carry the world on your shoulders anymore. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. You can just be what you are.
Okay, so if that's true humility, a realistic view of one's size and place in the universe, we have to talk more about the villain of this story. Section 3 identifies the enemy within. And spoiler alert for everyone, it's not the devil. It's not your boss. It's not the person trolling you on Twitter.
This is one of the most radical and, frankly, difficult ideas in the text. It asserts that no one else can hurt you.
Hold on. That's a hard pill to swallow. If someone punches me in the face or fires me from my job or betrays a deep trust, they hurt me. That feels like a fact.
Physically, yes. Financially, absolutely. Socially, of course. They can do damage to your body, your bank account, your reputation. But the text is talking about the spirit, the internal core, the place of peace. It argues that you are only hurt, spiritually disturbed, thrown into turmoil by your own pride and your strong desires.
Okay, let's unpack that. Only hurt by your own pride. How does that work in practice? Let's take a real-world example.
Okay, let's say someone in a meeting insults your intelligence. They call your idea idiotic.
Right. That stings.
Why does it sting? The text would say it stings because you have an attachment, a pride, connected to the idea of I am an intelligent person. Their comment is a threat to that identity. Now, imagine for a second you had zero pride attached to your intelligence. You were completely detached from the need to be seen as smart. Does that comment hurt then?
Probably not. It would be like someone calling me, I don't know, a purple elephant. It's just noise. It's factually incorrect, maybe, but who cares? It doesn't land.
It has no hook. The pain comes from the friction between their comment and your ego's self-image. You believe, I am smart, I am respected, and their comment scratches violently against that belief. The pain is the sound of your ego defending its territory. The text identifies the old self, the ego, as the greatest enemy because it is the receiver of the pain. If the receiver is turned off, the signal can't hurt you.
So the old self is like a giant target we paint on our own backs.
A giant, sensitive, perpetually inflamed target. And we walk around the world begging people not to hit it. And when they inevitably do hit it, we scream in agony and blame the dart thrower.
But the text suggests the problem isn't the people throwing darts. They're always going to be there.
The problem is that we are choosing to wear a target. The solution isn't to control all the dart throwers in the world, which is impossible. The solution is to remove the target.
And the text gives us a way to test this, a litmus test, to know if we lack humility. And it all comes down to one single behavior: self-defense.
This is the practical application. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
The text is very, very clear. If you use excuses, arguments, or counterattacks to protect yourself, there is no humility in you.
Zero. That's so harsh. No humility, not even a little.
It's binary in this view. Because if you are defending the self, you are serving the ego. There is no middle ground. The very need to explain or justify your actions to critics is presented as absolute proof that the old life is still in charge.
Why? What does it reveal?
It reveals a hidden belief, a core assumption. The belief is that the natural self, your reputation, your intelligence, your goodness, has a value that is worth defending.
But the text's whole premise is that the natural self
Is cracked pottery. Is
Yeah.
fundamentally flawed. So why are you defending it so fiercely? You are defending a pile of rubble as if it were a palace.
This is so countercultural. I mean, we live in the age of owning your narrative, clapping back, setting the record straight.
Pickle for the comeback.
Yes, this text says, if you're setting the record straight, you've already lost the spiritual battle.
It does. And it uses the historical example of Jesus, again, to drive the point home. It points out that he was called a deceiver, a drunkard, and possessed by demons.
Which, for a religious figure, are basically the worst, most disqualifying things you could possibly be called.
The absolute worst. And the argument is devastatingly simple. If the master was treated this way and didn't launch a PR campaign to correct the record, why on earth does the servant expect to be praised and respected?
It's the ultimate mic drop. The text says, we claim to follow him, but we don't understand his cross.
We want the resurrection without the crucifixion.
We want the glory without the shame.
Precisely. We treat shame and misunderstanding as an error to be corrected immediately, rather than as a spiritual discipline to be embraced. The text suggests that when you are falsely accused, that is actually a golden opportunity.
An opportunity for what?
An opportunity to die to your ego, a chance to let that false self, that reputation you're so worried about, take a hit and see that you survive. But instead, what do? We rush to court or to social media to defend our precious honor.
And every time we defend our honor, every time we write that long explanation in the comments, we strengthen the old self. We feed the enemy.
We feed the very monster that is actually causing our pain in the first place. It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. You defend yourself to stop the pain, but the act of defending reinforces the ego, which makes you more susceptible to pain in the future.
It's like scratching a rash. It feels good for a second, it's a relief, but you know you're just making the inflammation worse in the long run.
That's it, exactly. The text is telling us, in no uncertain terms, stop scratching, let the ego burn, let it die, because only when it is dead can you find real, lasting peace.
Wow. Okay, so we have to stop feeding the monster. We have to stop the noise of self-defense. And that transitions us perfectly into the second half of our deep dive chapter 23, which is all about the nature of silence. Because you can't have this internal silence if your ego is constantly screaming, "It's not fair," all the time.
Exactly. This is the structural connection between the two chapters. Humility is the demolition crew that tears down the noisy, condemned building of the ego. Silence is what you build on the empty lot.
The text immediately distinguishes between two types of silence. And again, it's not just about zipping your lips.
Right. There is external silence, simply holding your tongue. That's useful. It's a good starting discipline, but it's superficial. You can be sitting in a monastery totally mute for years, but your mind can be a screaming, chaotic marketplace of arguments, grocery lists, and old resentments.
The shower argument, when you're standing there silently under the water, but you're having a full-blown 3-act debate in your head with someone from work.
That is the perfect example of external silence with zero internal silence. It's the opposite of what the text is talking about. The text focuses on internal silence, which it defines as forgetting surrounding matters.
Forgetting, like amnesia.
Not amnesia, more like
letting go.
Detachment. Being separated from the noise of the world and, more importantly, the noise of the self.
It uses this phrase, concentration. It says, to gather all purpose, desire, mind, and will before the Lord. It sounds intense, almost like a laser beam of focus.
It is active. I think that's a common misconception. People mistake silence for passivity, like you're just zoning out or turning your brain off. But this is an active gathering. You are consciously pulling your attention away from the thousands of distractions, the phone notification, the news cycle, the worry about your reputation, the replaying of an old hurt, and you are centering it on one single point.
So it's not emptiness in the sense of a void. It's emptiness in the sense of clearing a space for one specific thing.
Yes. Think of it like a lens. If sunlight is scattered everywhere across a field, it's just warmth. But if you use a magnifying glass to concentrate that same light onto a single point, it can start a fire. Internal silence is gathering the scattered energies of your soul and focusing them on the divine.
And the experience of this state is described as sweet rest and internal solemnity. It talks about creating a secret place inside. It sounds just profoundly relieving.
It sounds like taking off a heavy backpack you didn't even realize you've been carrying for 20 years.
That's it, exactly.
That is the promise. It creates a space where the believer converses with God. But it's important to note, the conversation isn't necessarily words. It's presence, it's communion. It's just being together in the same room without the need to impress or explain or defend.
Which brings us to Section 5, the divine exchange. This is maybe the most mystical part of the text, but it's presented with a very clear mechanism, a kind of spiritual logic. It says there is a strict reciprocal relationship.
The exchange. I love this part because it's almost mathematical in its elegance. The text lays it out. Because the person is emptied, the Lord feeds them.
Cause and effect.
Because the person is uncovered or exposed, meaning they aren't hiding behind excuses and defenses, the Lord covers them with light and love.
One action enables the other.
Because the person humbles themselves, becomes nothing, the Lord exalts and unites with them. It's a perfect inverse relationship.
But the core condition, the one non-negotiable term is, this happens only because this person has no self.
There is the catch, the fine print. You cannot be full of yourself and full of God at the same time. The laws of physics don't allow two objects to occupy the same space. If you want the divine filling, you have to do the human emptying. There's no other way.
It's a zero-sum game when it comes to the occupancy of your soul.
Exactly. If the house is full of your own furniture, your opinions, your defenses, your desires, your fears, there's no room for the king to move in. You have to move out first. You have to put all your stuff on the curb.
And the text calls this silent state a thumbnail of eternity, a little preview of the big picture.
Yes, I love that imagery, a thumbnail sketch. It suggests that this state of silent communion is what we were actually built for. It's our factory setting. It's what eternity will be like. So when you access it now, even for a moment, you are stepping out of time and into the eternal state. You are practicing for the main event.
But then, right after this beautiful description, the text shifts tone dramatically. It includes what it calls a divine lament. It shifts perspective to God's point of view. And from that view, God says he is totally alone.
It is a striking, almost shocking image. The creator of the universe, the source of all being, is described as being totally alone. Why? Because no one is seeking him for him. Everyone is seeking his gifts. Everyone is seeking comfort or blessings or solutions or good feelings. They are playing with created things.
It asks this heartbreaking question. Why do people trade the best God himself for the cheap stuff, the trinkets?
It's the classic human error, isn't it? We prefer the immediate, tangible distraction over the infinite, silent reality. We are addicted to the noise and the shiny objects. The text paints a picture of us as children sitting in a room with a priceless diamond, but we are completely mesmerized by the wrapping paper it came in.
Wow.
We play with the crinkly paper, we fight over who has the bigger piece, we hoard it, we build our identities around it, and we completely ignore the actual jewel sitting right there in the middle of the floor.
That breaks my heart a little. The idea of the divine just waiting there for us to stop playing with the paper.
It should break your heart. I think that is the point of the lament. It's meant to wake us up to the tragedy of our own distraction.
So how do we fix this? How do we finally drop the wrapping paper? The text claims that this path of silence and humility leads to becoming the happiest person on earth.
Which is a bold, bold claim for a text that just told you to joyfully accept persecution.
Right. The sales pitch is, joyfully accept suffering and you'll be the happiest person on earth. It sounds like a complete contradiction.
But if you follow the logic we've been unpacking, it's not a contradiction at all. It's the inevitable conclusion. The text defines happiness as freedom. The happiest person is the one who separates from all things to be free and alone with God. The key condition is to forget every worry and thought.
And it gets very specific about managing desires. It says to maintain singleness of focus. And there is a test here that is incredibly subtle. Even if a desire is spiritual or good, you must be detached from it.
This is a very subtle trap. We can call it spiritual gluttony.
Spiritual gluttony.
You think you've given up worldly things, but now you're greedy for spiritual things. You desire peace or spiritual gifts or a feeling of closeness to God. You are still desiring a thing. You are still a consumer in the marketplace. The text says, if God does not satisfy that desire for a feeling, the true believer does not lose their peace.
Because they want the giver, not the gift. Their peace isn't dependent on getting the goodie bag.
Their desire has been simplified down to one thing. Only want him. Not his consolations, not his insights, not his peaceful feelings, just him.
So if you only want him, and he is, according to the text, always present,
then you are always satisfied. Your happiness is unshakable. But if you want a specific feeling, say a warm, fuzzy feeling during prayer, and that feeling fades as feelings do, You are suddenly miserable. You think God has left you.
But he hasn't left.
Only the feeling is left. You've mistaken the wrapping paper for the diamond again.
So even the desire for a spiritual experience can become an idol.
Yes, a very dangerous idol because it looks so holy. But if it replaces the raw, naked faith in the divine presence itself, it's just another form of gluttony, another thing the ego can be proud of. I had such a deep spiritual experience today.
The practical instruction here is to offer your whole life as a sacrifice, in a spirit of peace and silence. And then there's this logic of space again. The more you let go of your own life, both external things and your internal nature, the more space you create for God to exist within you.
It's all about occupancy. Who is living at the center of your being? Is it you with all your neuroses and demands and fears? Or is it the divine? You have to evict the old self, you have to serve the eviction notice, pack up his bags, and kick him out so that the new tenant can move in.
The final invitation of the text is to enter the center of one's being. This is where the renewal happens. This is where the text says a new heavenly kingdom is established.
It paints a picture of a world within a world. You might be walking around in the noisy, chaotic external world, at the office, in traffic, at the grocery store, but inside, you are in a silent, peaceful, heavenly kingdom.
You become a portable sanctuary.
A portable sanctuary. That is the promise. You become a walking, talking temple, always at rest, because the ego is no longer running the show.
It's a beautiful vision, and it's also terrifying, because the price of admission is everything.
The cost is your ego, which, if you think about it, is a price worth paying, considering the text argues the ego is the source of all your misery anyway.
That's the ultimate irony, isn't it? We fight so hard tooth and nail to protect the very thing that is making us miserable.
Exactly. We are the loyal bodyguards for our own prison warden.
So let's try to synthesize this whole deep dive. We've gone on this journey from the noisy pride of self-defense, the excuses, the arguments, the look at me, humility,
Performances.
all the way to the silent power of internal emptiness. And the connection is crystal clear. You cannot have the silence without the humility to kill the old self.
There are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Humility clears the ground. Silence is the temple you build on it.
And this matters because, well, just look around. We live in a world of maximum noise and maximum ego. Everyone is a brand. Everyone is a lawyer for their own reputation. This text, as aggressive as it is, offers a way out, a radical exit ramp from the exhausting rat race of the self.
It offers rest. Not just a nap, but deep structural rest. It offers you the chance to stop litigating your own existence 24 hours a day.
I'm going to leave our listeners with a final provocative thought, something to really chew on from this. The source suggests that your old self, your ego, is your greatest enemy. Not a nuisance, an enemy. If that is true, then every time you feel hurt, offended, or misunderstood, that feeling is not a sign that you are a victim.
What is it a sign of?
It is a sign that your enemy, your ego, is still alive and kicking.
It's a smoke signal from the enemy camp, located inside your own borders.
Exactly. So here's the thought experiment. What would happen if you treated your own defensiveness as the real threat, rather than the person or the comment that's criticizing you? What if the next time you feel that hot surge of wanting to clap back or set the record straight, you recognize that urge as a symptom of the sickness, not a sign of your strength?
That would change your entire life. It would fundamentally change your relationships, your work, your inner peace. It changes everything.
It really would. Something to mull over in your next moment of,
hopefully, silence. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.
Stay humble, or...
For more spiritual resources, visit lokaken.ai.